Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Pair of Kings podcast. This week, we are joined by our wonderful friend, Chloe Boxer, wonderful tailor on set tailor, very interesting profession, to talk about her experience working on set as a tailor, what she sees in terms of historical fashion and trends today, and a whole lot more. We hope you enjoy, and here is our theme song.
What you gonna do with all that junk inside your trunk? I'ma get you drunk, get you love drunk off my hump, 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 my lovely little lump. Check it out.
Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of the Pair of Kings podcast. I'm your host, Saul Thompson. You can find me on Instagram at Saul Thompson. I'm joined this week not only by my wonderful co-host.
I'm Michael Smith. I'm probably on Instagram at @_Smithstagram. And we are joined by a recommendation from Dylan, a former pod guest, a friend of the pod, Chloe Boxer. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do, Chloe?
Hi, nice to be here. Thank you for having me. So I currently work as a tailor. I do both kind of regular shop tailoring, and I also work as a set tailor for fashion editorials, commercial shoots, that sort of thing.
And the way Dylan has described you to us is that you are a clothing wizard. You guys, I believe, work together.
We've worked together a few times. I met Dylan on a crazy double cover shoot for Cultured Mag. They were doing 2 covers in one day. Dylan was a stylist assistant for a stylist I work with a lot, Dion Davis.
Cool.
And I was tailoring. I took apart a crazy Marc Jacobs dress for the Chimamanda Adichie cover. And then we met again recently on another shoot at Condé Nast because Dylan, I believe, has started working in the Vogue closet.
Yes. Yeah, she's part of their styling department of sorts.
Yeah, so I was set tailoring for that shoot, and she happened to be there. It was very fun to run into her again, and she took me up to the closet to hunt for some garment bags to cut up to add fabric to a look that needed to be let out.
This, I believe, was one of the stories that Dylan said makes you a clothing wizard, and I would like to touch on that in a little bit. Before we do, we should get the usuals out of the way. Saul, would you like to give us a fit check?
It's pretty surprising. I'm wearing the same jeans I've worn probably on every episode of this season of the podcast. Some striped gold jeans, and then a old, I guess it's a half sleeve baseball shirt.
3/4 sleeve.
3/4 sleeve.
Come on.
I mean, that goes to my elbow.
Yeah, but
Three-quarter
it's
I'm stupid. 3/4 sleeves. I'm a fashion guy. Michael, do you want to go next?
yeah. Why is it always baseball shirts that are 3/4 sleeve with the? Is there a historical reason for that?
I'm sure there is. I'm not aware. I was not a baseball, not a baseball guy, but
I think it's just a combination of that's what sportswear looked like at the period, and also for throwing, you don't want a long sleeve. Maybe a little bit more movement in the raglan sleeve as well.
Interesting. Okay, I believe that. I wholeheartedly believe that from now on.
Yeah, don't fact check me.
Wouldn't dare. I am wearing Crocs. I am wearing Rick Owens basketball shorts with the little stripy things. And I am wearing a big old Rick Owens t-shirt, and that is it.
I am wearing some No Fear motocross pants.
No Fear is a crazy throwback.
Yeah.
I feel like
I have a Kiki de Montparnasse tank top, a CDG Homme Plus shirt, and I kicked off some Guidis before.
the big old back zips.
Yeah.
The good back zips.
Bought those at a bus stop in Paris in 2011.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Talk to me about this. Come on.
So it was kind of the height of my forum trolling days.
You're
And
like
I was-
style zeitgeist era?
Yes.
Cool.
And I was doing a semester abroad in France. It was one of my majors was French. And somebody had them listed, and I had never tried a pair on. I met her at a bus stop in Paris at like 8 p.m. and walked to the ATM together and handed over the money. And I have worn them kind of daily for, at this point, almost 15
I
years.
did something similar, and I woke up in a bath full of ice with my liver gone.
It was a risk, but a risk I guess I was willing to take.
I'd trade my liver for like the right pair of Guides.
The right
probably.
pair of Guides, yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
How long ago was that? Like how long have these been your go-to?
That was 2011. So
Oh, yeah.
almost 15 years. I've replaced the zipper twice.
Okay, I was just about to ask because every single pair of those that I have seen last 5 years, the zipper just pops out the back.
Yeah, it's the zipper tape just frays eventually. I think this is probably their last go round. I don't know if they're going to be replaceable again, just because the nature of sewing leather.
Just too many stabs.
Yeah, it'll perforate at a certain point, so you keep having to move in. And it'll just, at the moment, the ankle, I think, is about as narrow as it can get.
Is that
So,
something you do yourself, or do you?
No, you need particular machinery in order to like navigate around the crevices of a shoe. Something with like a really sort of narrow barrel at the bottom. And I'd rather just give it to somebody else to do.
Fair enough. Your start in fashion is like style zeitgeist, style forum kind of fashion forums, or where'd that come from?
That's a great long question. I probably started with sewing. I've been sewing my whole life. We had a costume shop in middle school and high school, and I was a costume shop kid, and I hung out there.
The theater kid to fashion pipeline is kind of strong, I think.
It's a straight
straight line.
And I was kind of there because I was more interested in fashion, I think, than in theater. But primarily, I was interested in like construction and technique, and rework. I was really into reworking my clothes when I was in like the 6th grade. I made a bunch of I made a 6-foot tall pair of pants out of all my old jeans. I used to wear them to school with Turkish slippers and some fishnets that I would turn upside down.
6 feet tall, so they were like just completely.
They just scrunch.
And you were probably like 4 feet tall at the time.
Yeah, I was probably more like 5 feet, but yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah. They were probably they were taller than me. It was just 3 pairs of pants that mostly didn't fit, and I would take we were wearing a lot of denim back then. I would cut off like bell-bottom legs and safety pin them as sleeves onto my shirt.
That's what kids are doing now.
Yeah.
But they're making TikToks about it.
Yeah.
And being like, did I just make the pants
Did I
of the
just
summer?
invent this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they didn't.
They didn't. I didn't invent it either, but
Fair enough.
it is very funny to see the like Y2K DIY stuff come back around because that was really my generation.
All of the like style zeitgeist darkwear stuff kind of, I think we're getting back out of it. We like looped into it, and then I don't know, Boris is closing now, and what?
A fist bump.
Did you have that like? Were you were on forums of various sorts? What was your?
Yeah, so after high school, I guess my first official like fashion thing was there was a little feature on me in Teen Vogue when I was in high school.
Whoa.
Yeah. And then I got to college. I had a Rick Owens jacket, and I met my college boyfriend because he saw my Rick Owens jacket, and he had a Rick Owens jacket.
Wow.
And we were both like, oh, so it was a real like goth Rick relationship.
Can I make it any more obvious?
Exactly. Exactly.
He wore Rick Owens. She wore Rick Owens. What more can I say?
Yeah. He introduced me to Style Zeitgeist and like Super Future.
Yep.
I recall.
Rest in peace.
And
I actually don't know. Is Super Future still around?
I don't think so.
it seems like most of the forums have kind of maybe Discord is where everyone is now.
Discord is absolutely where everyone is. Style Zeitgeist, I think, officially shuttered.
Did it?
And
Actually, don't know.
Eugene Rabkin is still around. Faust.
Yeah, he writes.
He writes.
Yes.
He writes some horrible things sometimes.
I'll say some stuff and then we can talk about whether we're going to keep it in the podcast later or not. But I left Style Zeitgeist in like a big blow up kind of. I had a big fight with a bunch of people on there and then I deleted every post I'd ever made.
What was the fight about?
I don't even really remember, except it was just like the most misogynistic place. And I was, a 20-year-old girl. There were maybe 4 women on the forum, if that.
Yeah.
And
there were like 3 women and 1 catfish, probably.
Yes. Very, very fashionable women, but the discourse on there was very fashion dude. And I just, I was tried to push back against that as much as I could, and it was not well received.
That era of the internet had so much of that. And I mean, you still see it in the Discords, but there's so much more like awareness that I think it gets pushed back on by more than just like a couple people, which is always interesting. I've seen, slightly tangential, I've seen fights about like years of zipper production almost tear forums apart, Like some of the most heated arguments I've ever seen have been on like Style Forum about whether this one specific Rick leather code is indicative of like, I don't know, production year or whatever.
Or something even less factual. Like you can only wear Rick with Rick. If you don't wear Rick with Rick, then you're a poser. It's just not meant to be worn with other things.
Honestly, no, I'm kidding.
You get the one random kid who's like, actually, I like it with this. And then everybody dog piles on them for 20 minutes.
I can't fucking believe you would say that.
I think for me, like my origin with clothing and fashion was so much about DIY and mix and match, experimentation. And what I love about sewing and clothing in particular is how for so long it managed to escape being commercialized, industrialized. It as a practice has been really sewing especially has been a domestic practice for most of human history. And so I get very resentful when it's like trying to import some of those same like 1980s suiting rules and apply them to avant-garde fashion. All of those same little like, oh, your cuff isn't the right shape. Your sleeve is half an inch too short. Like, I don't like get another hobby.
I have had almost that exact conversation where like people were wearing like Rick Owens sneakers with Rick Owens suits, and someone's like, you can't wear like sneakers with a suit, and it's like my cuffs go to my knuckles. I'm wearing a diaper. My pants are drawstring. Like, the sneakers are not what has ruined me. This is not the sartorial mistake that you need to look at. None of this is correct.
And also to me seems so antithetical to, if we're talking about Rick specifically, his whole ethos.
Yeah.
So
I'm quite curious. You mentioned that you were working in the costume departments and were, I guess, a theater kid. There's certain plays
I
or
wouldn't say that I'm a theater kid.
That was my words.
Closely
Theater kid adjacent. You hung out with theater kids.
TKA,
You knew some
if
theater
you will.
kids.
Yeah, in the backstage kids.
Yeah, I was one of those kids.
Like theater tech kids, kind of.
Did you pick up any sort of sensibilities or interest in any of the historical fashion codes that may have been in any of the theater productions?
I don't know if any were motivated directly by the productions I worked on, but I did develop a pretty intensive interest in historical clothing and fashion, which so when I was in college, I did work study at the costume shop that we had there. There was quite a big theater program at my school, and so there was a costume shop with work study programs. And they also offered some classes as well. So that was where most of my more formal training came from. Up and then I'd say it was like largely self-taught. Did some pattern making where we learned from, no CAD software or anything. It was all like 1950s manuals and hand drafting. And then, so the woman who founded the costume department, who'd been there for a million years, at one point had found some antique clothing from the school, probably dresses that students or other faculty had worn that were donated to the department and then were turned into costumes, maybe like in the 50s or so. And she was able to establish a historical clothing archive.
Whoa.
And we applied for a grant that we got that allowed us to work with conservators from the Brooklyn Museum.
Oh my God.
And we did conservation and restoration and research into the collection that we formed. So for me, I worked a lot on it was like are you familiar with a hobble skirt?
No.
The
What's a
name is
hobble skirt?
familiar, but
It's a style of skirt or bottom that was really popular for 3 years at the beginning of the 20th century, basically 1910 to 1913. And it is extremely narrow at the ankles.
So you have to hobble around.
Well, that's what's interesting about it. So first I had to figure out what was original to the dress and what was not. There was a bunch of polyester and other things that had been added. So it was easy to tell, okay, that's not what is original to this dress. It had been taken in. I took it out. That's when I realized that it was a dress, but it was had a hobble skirt on it. And so I did a whole research paper that I ended up presenting at the Costume Society of America. They have like a symposium every year, basically about most of the prevailing thought around hobble skirts is that they are anti-feminist, that they are meant to constrain women's movement, that they are the name actually comes from like a horse hobble, not from the.
What's a horse hobble?
Great question. I think it's either a style of walk or something you put on a horse to limit its movement. But
So you took horse classes?
I did. I got kicked by a horse. That's as well as I know a horse.
Cool.
But a hobble horse is a thing, is it not? Aren't those the
Hobby
things?
horse.
Hobby horse.
So I don't know what it is.
I wrote this paper again 15 years ago, so the details are a little fuzzy. But when I was working on restoring this dress, I noticed the details of it to me were very reminiscent of men's suiting. It had a very common 1910s style of opening where there's kind of like a white placket along the chest and then a dark navy silk for the rest of it that was sort of cut like lapels. And then, as was very popular at the time, there were buttons on the cuffs, little white buttons down the center of the white placket. And I thought this really looks like a dress version of a suit. So I did a bunch of research, mostly into old humor magazines. Found a lot of really great ones in Punch, which is a British magazine. And most of the cartoons were mocking the silhouette because it made it too difficult to tell the difference from the back between men and women. That it was such a slender silhouette that it was confusing.
Interesting.
And when I dug into it more, what I learned was that the hobble skirt seems to actually have developed naturally it may have actually originated with airplanes. Women wanting to fly airplanes, which were new technology, and to get into the cockpit, their skirts were too large. So they would tie ribbons around the bottoms of their skirt to kind of keep it all in.
So cool.
And
so cool.
Early hobble skirt is not very straight up and down. It has fullness and these ribbons that cinch at the bottom. And then over the 3 years, it slims down. So it seems... I basically wrote this paper about hey, this seems like more about freedom of movement and liberation than it does about limiting movement.
So the initial read was it's constraining and thus it is not
Yeah, that's what was out there in terms of the fashion theory. I think, what's her name, who is the director at Valerie Steele is the fashion theorist who I think is at FIT now. And she had written a book about eroticism in clothing, and that was kind of, I think, the main text. But just in the to the extent that the hobble skirt was present in popular culture, it was known as being kind of
Interesting.
an anti-feminist garment. And I like the idea of looking at a garment and kind of reading directly from the garment, using the details to see like what is this actually trying to achieve.
Do you think that's something that's still possible, or do you think that we have sort of lost that sort of functional adaptation in clothing?
Oh, you mean the idea that a style could evolve out of function?
Yeah, like are we still making, because like I look at clothing and I feel like it's kind of just constantly cycling through the same like 10 things at this point, but do we still see that sort of evolution happening?
There's a few like different questions in there. I think we're still very much in a place where utility is ultimately driving a lot of style, maybe less garments specifically, but the way that people wear their clothes. We just don't live as formal of a life as people used to, and so there is a lot more practicality. I don't think that you see the same if we're talking about evolution and like the fullness of the skirt becoming slimmer. I think we don't see the same gradual change in silhouette that you used to, just practically because people were cutting down old clothes to make new clothes, which is now sort of considered sacrilegious, especially in the like designer community. And so instead what you have are these massive swings. So you have a narrow sleeve all of a sudden, because we're not limited by materials in the same way we used to, it'll go to a super full sleeve as a reaction. Whereas that swing used to take 10 years or more.
Right. Cool.
Have there been any other, I would say, major or small, quite big, recontextualizations of what a garment is, either in a societal sense, like, you know, a hobble skirt not being constricting for women, but actually being quite liberating as they explored a new hobby? Have there been any other, again, recontextualizations like that within the history of fashion that you've seen or even done research on?
I think recontextualization is kind of one of the primary driving forces of fashion movements. I mean, in contemporary fashion, you might say the corset. I feel like that used to be a very, first of all, it used to be an undergarment, and now it's primarily an outer garment. But yeah, I don't know. I think probably lots of things if you think about it. You're wearing a baseball shirt.
And
playing baseball. I'm wearing motocross pants. Not
That's
doing
very true.
motocross.
I'm wearing basketball shorts.
Not playing
Not
basketball.
playing basketball.
3 for 3.
You're also you're wearing work pants
I got soft hands, brother.
to sit on a couch and pet a dog. There's so many like I've because my like origin is in denim and bullshit like that. I know so much about like you know, rivets used to scratch the saddles of people's horses, so they covered the rivets, and that's why jeans have like the hidden rivet thing going on. And I feel like a modern equivalent of that is like the arms of people's shirts wear out because they're using a keyboard so much, and so we need to like double layer it.
Oh, is that a thing?
No, but like what's the
I've never heard of that before.
what's the like shitty email job equivalent of needing to like modify a garment?
I think unfortunately it's just throw it away and get a new one.
Yes, it is.
Unfortunately,
That is very true.
We see a lot less modification and care and repair with clothes than people used to. But I think it's coming back a bit. I think especially with the tariffs and everything, tailoring is poised for a bit of a resurgence.
Recession indicator.
Broken clock is right twice a day.
Well, I think especially because like with the resurgent interest in vintage, quote unquote, archive clothing among younger people, I think people investing in their wardrobes in that way are going to discover in 5 or 10 years that even if you intend to buy something for life, if you wear it a lot, it will require care, repair, or your body will change. And nothing that you do to care for your clothing can prevent those sort of bodily changes. But if you really love something and want to hang on to it, there are always ways to make changes and accommodate for that.
Which I guess segues into on-set tailoring.
Yes.
That I am very curious about. a lot. That I feel like that job is a very sort of distinctive form of tailoring, in that you have to. Correct me if I'm wrong. You have to be able to undo basically everything you've done.
You do. That's
okay.
right. Yes, I'd say the two defining factors are you have to do it very quickly. There are no pre-fittings. You are fitting and then tailoring, and then it's up to shoot, and then you're taking it apart. You might do that with 4 or 5 different pieces in the day. And yes, it does have to be mostly invisible that work has been done. So it's a little bit more like costume work in the sense that when you are working in a costume shop, things are designed to be reused for, if you take up a hem, you're going to leave a lot of length in the hem because you might end up one day having a tall actor who wants to wear those pants. And so you want to be able to let the hem down. Whereas in personal tailoring, you would cut the hem to minimize the bulk. So there's that element. It's a little bit of a constraint having to take things apart, but it also makes things easier because you don't have to do as beautiful of a job in the interior. It's just for a photo. So it really just has to...
As long as the stitches will hold for an hour, you're kind of good.
Mostly it tends to be about, can you get somebody into a garment in the first place? So if they've booked a particular dress for the cover and you discover that the celebrity who you have is not going to fit in the sample, take it apart, sew them into it, take them out of it.
Oh, you literally sewing people in if they cannot fit.
Sometimes.
That's so interesting.
It depends on the garment and what is possible. So in the case with Dylan, we had a skirt that they wanted to shoot and it was just too small. So we needed to add fabric at the back. So I had to take out the invisible zipper, quickly pattern something to add, reset the invisible zipper, have her put it on. They shoot it, take it off, take the invisible zipper out, and then reset it in the original.
That's so cool.
But you also might have something a little more unwieldy where the closure is not going to be able to function and allow somebody to get into the garment at the same time. And that's when you'll sew somebody into the garment.
That's just ridiculous in the best way. Oh my God.
What's like the most extreme modification you think you've had to do something? Do to something?
Extreme modification. Because they all have to be reversible, it's usually less about modifying and more about undoing. But I would say there was I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but there was a Marc Jacobs runway dress, one of the like big felt ones, from one of the recent collections, like big round.
I have not kept up with recent Marc Jacobs.
Nor I, unfortunately.
He did these giant, very Comme des Garçons-esque, flat, circular felt dresses that were, just huge and incredibly heavy and lined with a really heavy, what we call horsehair. It's not real horsehair anymore. And that was insane because I didn't know anything going in. And then we realized it wasn't going to fit. And the stylist was like, so can you just rip open this entire dress so that we can get this person into it? And I did. And there wasn't enough time to repair it on set. So I ended up taking it home, and I don't have a workspace.
On the subway with just like a...
Luckily, they sent me home in a car. I wouldn't have been able to carry my sewing machine and this, probably 20-pound dress. And it was rigid, so I couldn't really put it through a sewing machine. So it was a lot of...
Just hand sewing?
Hand sewing, but there's a silk lining and then this incredibly thick, heavy felt, horsehair lined felt. So I was using upholstery needles to do it, like a curved upholstery needle. And I don't have a workspace in my apartment, so I was just balancing it on the couch. Just like, hope nobody notices when we send it back.
And did they?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Yeah, no word came back.
My girlfriend works in PR and also has they are involved in some form of sample trafficking, and they have a couple horror stories about things coming back that have been like mangled. Like whoever their on-set tailor was just like, yep, fucking cut it, throw it away. They just like took the waist in on something like several ugly inches and like no leftover, no slack.
When I used to work at a magazine, we would sort of just pin everything, and it looked horrendous from one angle and pretty good from another, and that's all that we hoped for. And then we'd take all the pins out and it'd be fine.
Pinning's a great solution. It definitely works if you need something to be smaller. It is not super effective if you need it to be bigger. I will also say there is an element to tailoring, which I will say I've only been working as a tailor for about 1.5 years now. And something that was surprising to me is with set tailoring in particular, there's quite an element of theater to it. In part, it is about making a model or featured person feel comfortable. So feel that the clothes are going to fit them, to know that there is someone there to make adjustments and modifications. So I've been on shoots where I am doing very little, where, you know, some shoots I'm sewing all day and then some shoots just a tack here and there. But you're sort of there to make somebody feel cared for and to know that there is somebody with expertise in fit so that they are not afraid that they're going to be sent in front of the camera with something that is off. But because of the fast-paced nature of things, if I need to make something bigger, sometimes it ends up too big, and we'll just put a clip in the back. Whereas when you're working with clothes that people wear, it's a very different kind of tailoring.
Yeah. You do both?
I do both, yeah. So right now I do a couple days a week at a rework vintage small designer boutique in Ridgewood. That's called Graceland.
Graceland. Oh, I've heard of this. Also because of Dylan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think Dylan has also told me about this place and that I should go visit it.
It's cool. You would like it. I've been working there for about 1 year, and they do all kinds of tailoring. So basic denim hems, but also suiting, darning, bridal, whatever. And that's really different because you really want the finishing to be really pristine. People are going to be engaging with the garments regularly. If it's something they're tailoring, it's probably something either for a special occasion or that they care about. And so you want it to last. You want it to look really nice, to be really comfortable on the body, not have any like bulk or bumps. That's a little more challenging sometimes when you're working on clothes that have been worn a lot because the wear is kind of baked into the fabric. So you have to be very careful when you're taking it apart. And we do all kinds of like just kind of like regular stuff, and then people will bring in, like I did a Vivienne Westwood skirt that had a curved invisible zipper and a bunch of 3-dimensional stuff, and I needed to take in the waistband on that. So everyone's kind of like a little...
How do you do that?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool.
No, I decided not to reset the zipper, and instead I took it in from one of the 3-dimensional seams. I had taken off the whole waistband, and then I reset the whole waistband rather than reset the curved zipper because I don't have time for that. There's also like a cost kind of benefit analysis you have to do every time, where you don't want people to pay so much money for their tailoring. You want the tailoring to be affordable to people, but it is an incredibly individualized service. And so it's just difficult to standardize. And so that means that it takes time and it takes thought, and you can't kind of churn things out like a factory. Everything is fit to someone's particular body and the particular case of whatever either they're trying to repair or alter. So
I'm quite curious, what aspects of tailoring do you really enjoy? Is it sort of the challenge of having to figure out how to go along a different seam, or you couldn't take it in one place, you have to go somewhere else? Is it sort of the end product, making it look really good for somebody? Like, is there a most rewarding part of the process for you?
Yeah, I would say for me personally, I really enjoy the puzzle of just how can I make this work for someone, and also what are we going to do? Like sometimes it's really easy and straightforward, but sometimes I had someone come in recently with this really cool pair of jeans that had a denim applique that went all the way to the bottom of the jeans, and she needed them hemmed quite a lot, and that would have meant cutting off the best part of the applique at the bottom. So we were kind of thinking like, what could we do to retain these details? And I ended up deciding, and she was into this, that we would remove the applique, hem underneath, and then leave the applique kind of like free draping over the shoe so that you still had the end of the applique. So I enjoy creative solutions like that. Just, I think it's the one-off nature of it for me. Like every single thing that you tailor is different in some way. And then I will say I do also really enjoy when you have something really well made that comes in. It's such a privilege to be able to open it up and see how it's made. And I've learned a lot about clothing construction. Most of what I've learned actually about clothing construction, I would say, has just really been from opening up clothes and taking them apart and kind of seeing how reverse engineering. I really enjoy that part of it. Yeah.
Do you see a decrease in, like, as someone who's taken apart and put back together a lot of clothes, do you see a decrease in quality in modern clothing?
What do you think?
I was gonna say yes, but I don't know if I'm just like reading too many tweets and if like maybe that's just a...
Absolutely. I mean, the quality of clothing manufacturing, at least that is accessible to most people, has dropped precipitously in the last few years, I would say.
Just in the last few years?
The last 5 to 10 years. Yeah. And I mean, when you're working with so much vintage clothing, which I have, you have a real sense of how over time the way things are put together have changed. So, you see a lot less internal structure in clothing, interfacing, seam binding, boning, padding. Those all used to be pretty common in most garments in one way or another. And you just see less and less of that and cheaper versions of it and more sort of gestures toward it. Quality of the materials decreased. I have to say a pet peeve of mine is people will bring in clothes to be tailored and I just can't. On the one hand, I'm like, this is great. Keep it out of the landfill. Like, good for you. And on the other hand, like, oh, this is such a piece of shit. Like, why do you want to spend $60 to refit something that probably costs $15 to make and is like, it's not designed to be tailored.
Like what sort of thing?
There's a lot of these like little like cotton voile sundresses that people will bring in.
Cotton ball sundress?
Sorry, cotton voile.
Voile.
VOILE. It's like a...
Yeah, no, I'm just stupid. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Fabric literacy runs a wide gamut.
It's just a word that I've read but never said out loud.
Voile.
Voile? Okay, yes, sorry. There's a lot of these cotton voile dresses.
Yeah.
Cotton voile.
Yeah, there you
Cool,
go.
thank you. I'm learning.
And
wait, what is cotton voile?
it's like a lightweight sort of loose weave, like a gauze.
A gauze. Cool.
Sort of like do you know not Pretty Little Thing. They're really, every girl in the Hamptons wears it.
Some kind of nap dress.
It's the really pink store.
The really pink. Like
store.
What kind of pink?
Like everything is pink and everything's $500.
Oh,
See?
Love Shack Fancy.
Thank you so much.
Love Shack
there
Fancy?
it is. Do you not know this?
No.
Okay, I think they use a lot of wall,
Yes.
if I were to guess.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So that, or even like polyester simulations of it, but it's so thin and so fine, and they're made a lot of the time with binding out of the same material, and you just can't take them apart because the fabric just shreds. Like there's no, the fabric kind of melds with the stitches. I also just recently did a pair of Eckhouse Lotta pants that had been put together only using top stitching. So I wanted to take the waistband in.
What is top stitch? You're gonna
Sorry, I
treat us real.
apologize.
No, I'm here to learn.
So top stitching, it's like this. It's stitching you can see from the top of the garment. It's usually, but not always, applied from the top of the garment. So you're sewing on top as opposed to a lot of sewing you're doing on the inside of the garment.
Like making a seam
Like
where it's
a
like...
so there's construction and then there's like finishing stuff. Top stitching tends to be a finishing step. So you
Got
would
it.
put together, ideally there would be a seam here where things are put together right sides together. That's how you sew a seam. And then you would turn it over and you might top stitch there, you might top stitch there, there.
Yeah.
It's partially decorative and partially functional. But generally it's a second step. And so this pair of pants had been put together very impressively, like from a manufacturing standpoint, just with top stitching. But it meant that when I went to take the waist apart, the whole thing came apart into 4 pieces because the top stitching was the only thing holding it together. And in order to release the top stitching, which I needed to do to take it in properly, the whole thing fell apart. And so I needed to then put it back together with regular seams so that I could take it in as 2 pieces as opposed to, it was a weird waistband. It was made up of 4 different pieces. And then I went back after I did it and applied the top stitching. But if it had been done with regular seams and top stitching after, I wouldn't have had to reconstruct the thing before I altered it.
And what... Because no one's going to know that it's only done with top stitching. So even if it's an impressive feat, is there a reason
I think probably money saving manufacturing.
Just money saving?
I would imagine. I don't know a ton about garment manufacturing, just a little bit. But that would be my guess, is it's just fewer runs through the machine make it cheaper.
Yeah.
Are there other macro, or I guess these would be micro things that you can see on construction of garments that have changed radically in terms of quality? I know one off the top of my head is stitch length. Like stitch length is increasing, which makes something more unstable, but also saves, I guess, slightly more by way of thread. There are other things like that have
Do you
changed.
save enough on thread by making the...
I mean, if you're making 1,000 things,
Fair enough.
It's also the time, actually, because they want the shirt or the thing to be made fast. And when you do more stitches per inch, it takes longer for the fabric to go through the machine.
The evil Zara boat coming over. Do you know that?
no.
Zara does some of their manufacturing on boats, taking stuff over to America.
Oh, I did not know.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
So
Like
that,
the
like-
mobile sweatshops.
Yes.
Oh,
So
great.
that like, because the whole
Sweet.
Zara business model is that like something could be on the runway today and in a knockoff of it could be in their stores like 2 days later.
Yeah.
And that is how they do it.
Fuck.
Sorry.
We're getting really close to those like Mad Max steam engines that go over the land and just like eat up natural resources to
Absolutely.
keep firing bullets. We're getting there. We're close.
Sorry. I tangent there. But yes, stitch length.
Stitch length. There's, I think, probably lots of stuff in manufacturing, like the increase in synthetic fibers, blends that have no purpose or reason except to save money. I'd say that's probably the biggest one. Also, just repetition of like base patterns. So a lot of stuff is just you're cutting from the same thing over and over again, and not making real structural changes to the pattern. But as far as like what I've feel like I could speak to personally from what I've witnessed, it's really that a lot of clothing, even at the ready to wear level, used to involve some degree of hand finishing, and there is no hand finishing in clothing, in mass produced or even more moderately produced clothing today. There's couture, there's hand finishing in couture, and then maybe if you're working with like a really independent indie brand or something. But otherwise, everything is done with machines. And there are certain levels of precision you can achieve with machines that you can't by hand. And then there's also a kind of like warmth and particular attention to detail that can't be achieved that way. So I'd say it's that and the kind of decline in internal structure and construction.
I guess that leads me to another good question. Are there modern brands today that you see and you feel like they are paying that attention to detail and putting in, that warmth and personal finishing, whether it be with hand finishing or just overall in the construction of the garments?
Yeah. The sample that I have is not confined to a particular season or year because my sample size is just the clothes that people wear that they bring in. But Yoji stuff, really, really beautifully done. I took in a pair of pants or recently a Yoji pair, and they had a really incredible detail I'd never seen before in the seam allowance on the pants. So when you have a pegged pair of pants, it can be difficult to hem because the circumference.
What's a pegged pair of pants?
I apologize. It's where it's kind of like the pant version of a hobble skirt, but it's a skinny pant where the pant is skinny at the bottom and a little wider at the top.
Oh, okay. So like,
can you tell we're on our best behavior this episode? Because no joke flew.
Yeah, we were.
We're being really good.
I was kind of looking at Saul for that one, but
nope.
I mean, feel free to,
Because I am genuinely interested, and I'm worried that if I make a joke about boning in a jacket or pegging in a pair of pants, I'm going to derail the conversation. So,
it's a rarity that we're actually trying to learn. We're learning here. I like this. Sorry, pegged pair of pants.
Pegged pair of it's a variation on a skinny pant, but basically a pant that's a little wider in the knee and the thigh and a little more narrow at the ankle. So like in some cases you might see that on a zoot suit.
Kind of like a carrot shape.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
got it.
Sometimes I think they're even called like a carrot leg or something. So when you want to hem that can be tricky because the opening circumference is smaller than the circumference of the leg when it's a little bit higher. And if you're turning under a piece of fabric to hem it, that, let's say 6-inch opening or 7-inch opening suddenly has to get sewn to an 8-inch or whatever. And so most of the time we can accommodate this by splitting the side seams and spreading them, which you will see sometimes in pants that have been altered. That kind of like little V shape on the inside. Yoji had built excess into the seam allowance. It was a curved seam allowance. So there's, your standard 1/2 inch, and then it sort of curved and added maybe like another 1/2 inch to each side. And so I was able to alter the pants without having to do that because they were designed to be altered or designed to have the option to be altered. That was a really cool thing that I've come across. I'd say like I have 1 or 2 Hermes pieces that come in. Those are always really nicely made, obviously. Just like your standard vintage Brooks Brothers, that stuff is immaculate, like always really nicely finished, really nice internal construction.
I guess you probably handle a lot of like the more modern stuff on the on-set stuff, on the shoot stuff. But is a lot of that like samples? Is that...
Yeah, so the stuff that's coming into the shop is mostly, it's a wide range. I'd say we do specialize there in specialty alterations. So we get vintage designer stuff coming in addition to people's old T-shirts or their old jackets or jeans or whatever. The really contemporary of the season stuff is I'm seeing on sets, and that is, I guess most of it is probably sample production. I don't really always know at what stage in the process these things are. Like if I'm lucky, I get pictures of the clothes beforehand.
And if you're unlucky,
and if I'm not, if I don't, I just show up and hope that I have the right color thread.
Cool.
So usually I come in and I start by checking out the rack and
Me too.
trying. There you go. There you go.
Had to get one.
I didn't realize there were so many.
You don't understand how many opportunities
Yeah,
there have been.
we will do this to everything. This
Don't
is
worry, we are.
You can make a list at the end of
We
all
are
the times you show
professionals.
Yeah, we're really good at making these jokes.
check out the rack.
Check out the rack. See how big everything is. Samples mostly come in one size. Find out what the measurements for the person I'm fitting are. And then I go, these things will never fit this person. You can send them back right now. I could have told you that before, but a lot of the times these shoots come together really last minute. So there isn't time for that. So I go, nope, these are not going to work. There's no way in hell. Then I look at the other stuff so at that point.
So really quickly, when
Yeah.
you're saying this won't fit, it's not only that you're eyeballing it won't work. You won't be able to take it out, bring it in, Leo, and make it work.
Yeah, so some things are just constructed in a way where there is, if you want it to be bigger, there's going to be some sort of visual disruption to the thing.
Got it.
And some things are made of materials that really can't have alterations undone. So like leather, plastic, vinyl, like really tight nylon, those are going to show what we call like ghost lines from the punctures of the needle.
Right.
And so that type of stuff, I'll just say like you're better off. There was I think like a really stiff leather J.W. Anderson top with a peplum that they wanted made bigger, and I just said, nope, sorry. Better luck next time. But yeah, most of these I would assume, especially the high-end designer stuff, is samples, but sometimes I think we're also working with, sometimes they'll send like a bunch of different shirts, so I don't know where those shirts are coming from.
But do you see, I guess, in the process of like taking apart and fixing those like designer samples, do you feel like there's any brands that particularly stand out as being well made? And who sucks?
Oh yeah, who does suck?
Who makes god awful, poorly constructed clothing?
I mean, so at the sample level, I don't really want to judge because
No, be just a little.
samples are it's hard to comment on the so-called quality because then you're kind of really talking about manufacturing quality, and that's not what most samples are. A lot of samples are not made by the factories that are going to end up making them.
Fair enough.
It's made by somebody else. But the design, I think anytime you're dealing with runway pieces, there's some sort of significant technology, innovation, or technique that's been used that's interesting. So I always like to see that. Honestly, one of my biggest quality beefs is with Rick.
Yes.
I just think the whole your clothes are supposed to fall apart, that's part of the deal, is bullshit. It's just bullshit. If you want the bottom of your t-shirts to shred, that's one thing. If you want the lining of something to shred, that makes no fucking sense. It makes no sense. That's not what a lining is for. A lining is a thing that allows you to put the garment on. And when you have like shrink wrapped sleeves that you have to slide through and a cotton lining, it just doesn't make any fucking sense.
Watch this, everyone. Michael, are you gonna take that?
One of my largest like tailoring to-do list items that I have sort of put off because I have not found the right tailor for it is that I have a Rick Owens leather jacket from 2012 and the lining is fucking demolished. It was from the era where he was using cotton. I'm pretty sure cotton internal lining, and then like
the satin in the sleeve. Right?
The sleeves are satin, and so they're fine. They're correct. The pockets and the entirety of the lining, it's cotton, and you get like one little run in it, and the whole thing just drops out. I still every now and then, because I have two Rick leather jackets, and I'll forget which one I'm wearing, and I'll put my phone in the pocket, and it'll just right through the bottom. It's ugly as shit because I was working at a coffee shop when I first ripped it, and I was like, I can't pay to get this fixed, and so I just I did iron on tape
Right.
and then kind of slapped some stitches over the top of it, and then it just ripped around that iron-on tape, and then I did more. It's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare of a jacket, and I do need that. Like I've been sort of just dealing with it, but also like at some point I will need to find someone I trust to remake a Rick lining, but good.
What details of the lining are you concerned about preserving?
It's the old style of Rick jacket, so it has an internal strap.
Okay.
Like a carrying, and the carrying strap is anchored through the lining. So the lining, the carrying strap, I believe, is actually sewn into the sleeve.
Yep.
And then the lining is sort of pinned to that. So you're not carrying the jacket by the lining, luckily, otherwise that would
Right, no,
completely
it's
fall
anchored
apart.
in the seam.
And then the pockets, the giant pockets.
Yeah. The book and sandwich pockets.
Book, sandwich, and passport. Yeah. So I need to find someone who like is a good tailor and also like that I don't know. It's been a quest.
Yeah.
I would agree. I am not going to fight you on that. I think Rick has done some really stupid decisions on a lot of the like materiality. Sometimes there was one season where they made these waistbands out of silk, and every single one of those has disintegrated.
Shattered. That's what happens to silk. It shatters.
Yeah.
Hey, really? That's the
Yes,
technical
that's
term?
the technical term.
That's so cool.
It will just create these straight lines, and the whole thing falls apart. And cotton for a lining, sometimes I think it's great if it's a little thicker. He uses a particular kind and this happens with wear, like you get a crease. The crease gets pressed down, and then the edge of the crease is going to get more abrasion on it than the side, and that particular edge of the crease starts to wear thin. So one way to prevent things like that from ripping is to iron or steam them regularly.
Oh, really?
Because it just distributes the friction on the fabric so that you don't have high, like, increased points of friction, which can rub down, and then those get thin and they just rip and tear. But
The amount of
that's a very interesting darning job.
I'll take that as a something. That was my darning job.
Yeah.
The amount of pockets that I have blown a corner out of because it's that like
Keys.
yeah, keys and phone. It's like the corner of my phone, and if I drop it,
Impacts?
yeah. So the amount of specifically like this style of shorts I have, where there's like 3 of these in each pocket.
I will say it's clothes. You wear them, they get used, things happen. It's very common. So fixing pocket bags, something we do all the time at the shop. Also relining jackets, something we do fairly regularly.
Do I have a jacket for you? You want a 1923 garment worker's jacket?
Oh, cool.
I will obviously pay for it, but I do need to get that lining replaced because it looks like he went in and just tried to get out. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. Your body is full of oils and acids that
Mine's not.
eat away at... Ooh.
Mine's dry as hell. No, you're right.
Fully base. You have a base pH.
Yeah. I'm absolutely neutral. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing I love about clothes. They change with wear. They are ideally tools that are used, and they have to interact with your body. They're like the skin between your body and the rest of the world. And it's not like a clean, easy, categorizable relationship. Like you move in all kinds of ways, in all kinds of conditions, and shit happens. And that's what I love about tailoring. You just kind of, all right, what the fuck happened to this thing? Well, what the fuck can we do to fix it?
I have a very specific, well-known habit of destroying specifically the right elbow on everything I own. I don't know what that is. I have no idea what
that
causes
about?
it.
I
but,
blow out
like,
the crotch in every pair of pants.
well,
Very common.
yeah, that's regular.
Oh.
I don't know why it's the right and not the left, you know?
Do you
enough.
lean on one more?
I'm doing a lot of this.
Or do you wear like a spikier ring on your right hand and goes through the...
No, I don't.
Maybe your elbow's just spikier there. That's not the thing.
Yeah.
Bodies are not symmetrical. So sometimes when you're altering on people, you kind of have to ask, do you want the item tailored symmetrically or do you want it tailored to your body?
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, I have an arm that is, I think, like a quarter of an inch longer than the other. So all my suit jackets are asymmetrical.
Hell yeah.
The suit jackets are asymmetrical, or
There's
the
the
appearance of
sleeves.
your, like, do you tailor the sleeves asymmetrically, or?
Sleeves are tailored asymmetrically so that it looks symmetrical
Right.
on my body.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's great.
yeah.
Yeah. Is that something you have to point out when you're getting your clothes
I've
tailored,
been
you said?
going to the same tailor now for 6 years, and
Oh,
he
cool.
knows my arms. And he's like, "Oh, you need this fix," and I'm like, "Mhm."
He knows my arms.
He knows
He does
my
know my
arms.
arms better than I know mine.
That's great. That's that's a sign of a good tailor. Is he in the city?
He's in Boston.
Oh wow.
And I drive all my clothes up there when I go up to visit my grandparents and swing by him. His name is Richard. He's very nice.
Thank you, Richard.
Shout out Richard.
He's amazing. While you're on set, I imagine that you're not the only on-set tailor ever working, right? Do you ever take apart a piece, either a sample or something that you're working with, and you're just like, oh, fuck, like, what am I doing here?
Like, what happened to this? Or?
Yeah, like somebody's, put back the lining and it looks fine. You pop it open to
Yeah.
take something in or take something out. It's just a horror show.
Not on set.
Okay.
I actually have never worked on a sample that had been previously altered,
Oh.
to my knowledge. But it happens all the time in more like regular tailoring where something has been tailored by somebody else before and it's like a hack job. Sometimes people will come to us to fix something another tailor has done. But at the same time, I don't really get too worked up about it because I think it's great. I think any way you want to repair something is good. And if somebody did like a slightly less clean job or a job that, conflicts with it, it's very rare that I get something.
I'm gonna argue. I'm gonna argue against any way that you repair something is good.
Yeah.
Because I bought a pair of pants off the RealReal and they were hemmed with 4 inches of super glue. They were cut, super glued, folded, and just with so much super glue.
The alterations gamble on the RealReal is really that's something to watch out for. It's
Absolute nightmare.
I found this Issey Miyake dress that I had been looking for a long time, and it was exactly the dress and the size that I wanted. I had already tried on the dress in real life, so I knew what it was, and I got it, and I was like, why the fuck do these sleeves fit like this?
They were shorter?
No, somebody had, luckily in a reversible way, but somebody had kind of taken in, they'd done these little, I couldn't call them darts, but kind of done these little tucks along the inside of the sleeve to make it narrower. And at first I panicked. I was like, oh no, this is a nightmare. This is a knit. But luckily they were smart enough to not cut any of the fabric. So I just popped them out and it was perfect.
I think I need to make a visit to Graceland because I'm remembering now all of the tailoring nightmares I have left in just random places.
Everybody has a pile.
Yeah, I bought a Tom Brown suit that was tapered so much that it's hugging my calves.
Oh no.
I have things. I have
Is
issues.
there excess?
Oh yeah, they left everything. They were very, very polite about massacring it. So
Thank you. We do appreciate a polite massacre.
Yeah, as long as you leave it. I don't care if you want to look like that, but make sure that if you're gonna sell it, that I can fix it.
That's the thing, when you list something as a size 8 and you get it and someone's put a bunch of darts in it and now it's a size 2. It's like, okay, I get that the tag says size 8, but that's not actually what you're
Not
selling.
what it is.
Yeah.
I bought my Grail Rick tunic off the RealReal.
Wait, when?
A long time ago, 2 years, something, a year ago.
Oh.
And I got it and I tried it on and I was like, fuck, this is too small for me. This does not fit me. I thought I was a small in this and I am apparently a medium. And I sold it on Instagram within a day. I put it up, sold quick. And then someone reached out to me and they were like, hey, I saw that thing you were selling. I think that was mine. I had it tailored, but the inside is apparently, and I don't know why I didn't fucking look. I didn't assume it was tailored. The inside was pinched shorter, smaller, but it was not. It was all the excess was there. I could have just seam ripped it and I would have been golden. But I shipped it to India the day before I found that out.
That's devastating.
So
Calling DHL. Bring it back, bring it back, bring it back.
please.
Bring
It
it
was a
back.
mistake. It was a mistake.
You don't understand. The hem was taken up.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So I'm curious, as somebody who's really adept at tailoring, do you shop for clothes or thrift in a very different way? Are you looking for material quality and you know that you can sort of make it work? Or what do you look for, I guess, when you are shopping?
Yeah, I would say it helps and it hurts because I'm so entranced by innovative pattern cutting or sewing techniques that's a lot of the times I'll end up buying things because I appreciate the object.
Sure.
And then I realize it's not really something I want to wear, but it's so cool. I'm very particular about material. And this has less to do with tailoring, and I think it's more just a personal sensory thing. I really prefer generally natural fibers, unless there's a reason to use a synthetic, in which case great. But it definitely gives me more freedom because I know, okay, this pair of pants is a size too big. I can take it in. I wear a lot of men's clothes, and I like the freedom of knowing, like, okay, if it doesn't fit on my waist perfectly, I can always take it in. But I'm usually looking for something that I think has like what I would call structural integrity. So something that is either been put together in a cool way or, learning how clothes are made did make it harder to buy clothes because you start to realize like, oh, this is a well-made thing and this thing is really made poorly. And I don't enjoy wearing things that are made poorly. It doesn't, whereas I get real pleasure and joy out of knowing that the things that I'm wearing, like I understand how they're put together. I enjoy the finish. Like every time I put it on, I'm like, yes, this has like fell seams or this has French seams. I like that. It's not for any particular reason, just to know that there was some integrity involved in the design process or in the making of it. But yeah, I alter things all the time. And it's particularly nice for online shopping because I look at the measurements and I can kind of go, okay, I know this will fit in this way. And I can zoom in and see, okay, there's seams here and here and here. If I need to make a change, I can make one easily.
For a layman who doesn't necessarily know as much as you do, how would you advise people to buy better and not necessarily get duped by something being expensive, giving that illusion of quality?
Material is definitely a good indicator. So unless we're talking about like sports or other like athletic wear, I'd say unless something is pleated, in which case synthetics are necessary to maintain a permanent pleat, or if it's a real part of the design, like a Comme des Garçons situation, which even then I'm like, some of their fabrics, I'm like, come on. Look for natural fibers, look for, this is not a hard and fast rule, but generally like a tighter weave on a fabric is something you want to look for. If we're talking about longevity and from a tailoring standpoint, I would say it's always better to buy it a little big than it is small, unless you're talking about a suit jacket. And in that case, you want to fit your shoulders. Shoulders in a suit jacket are basically the most, it's not that they're difficult to alter, it's that the way that they're put together structurally, in order to make an arm's eye smaller, you need to add fabric to it, which is counterintuitive to some people.
Interesting.
Because it's a hole that you're trying to make smaller. So if you want to make a hole smaller, you're actually making the fabric bigger. I'm sorry, guys.
I didn't do it. We're good.
I just watched Saul's like.
I'm just curious, what's the reason for this newfound politeness? Is it?
Because I am learning and I really dislike derailing something that I'm learning by making a stupid joke.
Yeah.
And it's also really cool. And I don't want you to feel like I am being disrespectful to this craft because it is genuinely interesting and I'm having a really good time learning about it. And the last thing I would want is to 2.5 minutes later have to be like, okay, no, go back to that thing that I interrupted.
Right. So small hole.
Oh, I'm getting permission. Oh my God. Give me a minute. Now I'm on the spot. That has to be really good.
Oh, it's gonna be so bad.
It's gonna be
a
even worse.
fucking nightmare. Look what you've done. I think there's. This is a boys' fashion podcast, which ends up with a lot of bullshit, a lot of bad jokes. But I think sometimes it's important for us to have an actual
Conversation.
That
is important every now and then.
Save all the dumb jokes for when it's just the two of us being dumb.
Because we've been talking back and forth for like 3 years. So at this point, dumb joke, great.
Yeah, there's nothing left to talk about. we know everything about each other. I don't know.
I had a couple of suit jackets that last summer I took to get fixed. And one of the shoulders was too big. I was under the impression that that'd be a pretty easy fix. Because I never have had to have the shoulders get taken in. And my tailor, who's really wonderful, is like, listen, I can fix this. I have to take apart the entire suit and recut it, especially because there are pads in these shoulders. Are you okay with me doing this? I was like, well, how much is it? He's like, it's not going to be cheap.
Probably more than what you paid for the jacket.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And I got it. Now it fits great. Michael knows.
Oh, you did have it done?
It's the pinstripe suit.
Oh, yeah, that was worth it.
A really good suit. But again, I was under the impression that that'd be really easy. It was not. And shout out to him for not just charging me for it. And he called me because he has my number. He's like, hey, got to let you know, like, are you okay with this? And I said, yes. He was like, okay, we'll do it. And he did a really good job.
So sick.
That's awesome.
Yeah, his tailoring studio is like half the size of this room that we're in. And I don't know where he took that thing apart, but he did it. And it's great.
Finding a tailor you trust is maybe the most important thing to do in fashion. I feel like it's like I've got a tailor I've brought some evil work to, and he has done a great job.
What's evil work?
I have a pair of Balenciaga dress pants, they're just like suit trousers, but they're also tearaway. Like they've got like stripes on the side, and they're like Adidas tearaway pants if they were for wearing with a suit. So like wool, and they're like half lined and all that jazz. And the sizing is ridiculous on them. I have a small in them, and it was like 2 or 3 inches too big for my waist, which like if they're tearaway pants, you kind of don't want to. Well, they wouldn't have looked good with a belt in any capacity, but if I want to like utilize tearawayness, it needs to like fit my waist without a belt. So I took those to him, and there's like, snap buttons all along the side. They split completely in half, and I was like, yeah, I need this waist to be 3 inches smaller. And you can't, I don't think instead of like taking it in from the sides and like moving the buttons, he cut them down the crotch seam. Yeah.
That's the technical term.
Thank you. Yes. He opened them down the crotch seam, remade the fly, like moved them inward, basically, and then remade the entire zip fly. Did a really good job. They fit perfectly.
This is the way that car guys talk about their mechanics, where they're like, I needed to replace the transmission, but I couldn't do it myself. I trust my mechanic. Did a great job. Took off the whole belt. What a guy.
What a guy.
Yeah, and he didn't even upcharge me.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty common in tailoring for people to not really understand what is easy or possible versus what's possible and difficult, and what's just simply physically not possible. A lot of snaps are set like rivets. So there's a hole that's made in the fabric. And so it's usually not possible to move those because it leaves a hole, and then there's a hole.
And then there's a hole. Yeah, he was very, and again, very honest about it. He's like, I can probably do it like this. It will cost, twice as much as it usually costs me to take pants in, but I don't know. I think I paid like $80 for them, so
that's great to recut the whole crotch.
End of the day, well, I think I paid $80 for the pants to begin with.
Oh, okay, I see. Great.
And then I maybe paid like $120.
That sounds right.
To him, but like it was still $200 Balenciaga pants. I'll deal with it.
I'm impressed that he was able to recut the crotch and that they fit. Sometimes the concern, and that's true of a crotch and a shoulder or a arm's eye, as we call it, is because that's a curved seam. In order to recut it, you need to be able to maintain the same curve. And sometimes that's possible. If there's enough fabric, sometimes you can just treat it like a big piece of fabric and recut it. But sometimes it's not possible to totally match the curve. And that's when you get you end up with a sort of straightened out version of the seam. And so sometimes you might see that on a jacket that's been altered that's not great, where you sort of like your arms are a little like
I have a
stuck
jacket
to your sides.
that a tailor fucking massacred.
Yeah.
And they cut out all the excess. But if I raise my arms, the entire suit
Just goes, yeah.
And I was like, fuck. It was a great suit jacket. It was one size too big. I dropped it off to the tailor. She was like, yeah, no problem. And butchered it.
Yeah. And it's tough because some people just really don't care about that. And they just want it to look, when they look in the mirror, they just want it to look smaller. And so that's also a tough thing as a tailor, is having to like, I can do this for you, but you're asking me to do something painful. And so I would recommend you don't, but I guess I will do it. And then it sucks, when they're not kind of straightforward about how it might affect the fit.
With tailoring, I think finding a good tailor is near impossible. It's really hard, but especially with the craft becoming more I would say, shrinking as a field more and more. Do you find that the work that people ask you to do is more and more out there because it's being consolidated? Like fewer tailors working, you're getting more work, you're getting more weird stuff? Or are you being approached, as a set tailor because they're like, oh, you're really good at what you do. Like, can you do this?
Set tailoring, I think it's a speed thing primarily.
Okay.
You need to be able to work really, really fast. And in a set environment, you're usually not in a room by yourself where most tailoring takes place. You're, behind the crafty table, or you're like next to the steamer. And you don't have like a whole big table setup and everything. So I'd say for set tailoring, it's primarily a speed issue. And I think I have a mix of formal and informal training, but it's primarily informal training. And so what that means is I am more likely to break certain rules, and make choices based off of my experience as opposed to what you're not, supposed to do or not. And
can I ask really quickly what some of those rules are? I'm always really interested in like, Tom Brown, you have to do this in a certain way.
It's, it might be something like there are some tailors who will never take in the shoulder on a jacket. They just will refuse. Because
it's hard, or?
Because they don't feel like even if it's done well, the pre-existing object is suitable for that alteration.
Sure.
And so they just will refuse that job. Or, you're supposed to baste this thing first, or you're supposed to use interfacing, or you're supposed to use some people won't sew an invisible zipper without an invisible zipper foot for the machine.
Sorry, really quickly, what is basting? I know what that is in cooking, but not in clothing.
Yeah, slightly different. So basting is it's kind of like pinning with thread.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a long, loose stitch. You'll see it most commonly. It would be recognizable to you from anytime you've seen like a suit jacket being made bespoke. Those like white, those are called tailor's tacks. But basting is done at all different times in the process. Sometimes it sticks, and sometimes it. When you buy a new suit, oftentimes the pockets are basted closed.
Yes.
Yes.
You're supposed to cut those open.
Oh, I have to ask, what do you think about people leaving
the
their
tailor
vents?
tax?
Yeah.
The vent thing, I mean, I've seen a few people talk about it recently. It's been like my number one pet peeve for as long. I mean, I have gone up to people on the subway and been like, excuse me, I'm sorry to bother you, but I just want to let you know that your vent is closed. I mean, I just think there's nothing
What
more.
did you just say to me?
There's nothing more embarrassing than wearing like an outfit and then your coat is billowing behind you, and then it's like weirdly ballooning because the like X in the back, and they're just too. It also makes me frustrated because it shows the degree to which people just don't understand clothes. There's very little like education about how to interact with your clothes, and it's sad because your clothes are next to your body all day, and it's like people feel afraid to touch their clothes to the point where something that is supposed to be removed and is really just there to keep it nice while it's in a retail store. It's really sad to me that people are so like afraid or distanced from their clothes that they don't know to cut those things.
I'm always so surprised by the amount of people who think that their suit jacket has fake pockets, who think that they're like their breast pocket especially is like not real. And I'm like, no, you just one quick, like just a quick rip. It's done. I promise.
Yeah, that's especially on men's clothes, like decorative pockets, women's clothes, that's rampant. But on men's clothes,
very rare.
if there's a pocket, it functions.
I'm kind of curious. You know, if you're a bartender, you go to a bartender bar and you get a bartender drink, right? You get like Fernet, which is kind of disgusting. Are there clothes like made for tailors? Does that make sense? Like ones that are cult classics or are, you know, oh, this is, I'm in the know. I'm a tailor. I own this. Whether maybe it's a tool, right? Like a certain pair of scissors or like a sewing machine, like
tools.
Okay.
It would be tool. I mean, the biggest thing I would say is, and I do not recommend that you use one of these unless you are already very comfortable with a seam ripper. But I use a scalpel.
whoa.
And a lot of tailors use either a scalpel or a straight blade.
You have a sharps disposal that you carry with you?
I just wrap them up in the foil and throw them away.
Cool.
Yeah, but usually I don't need to change it
That often.
every day. I mean, it depends what I'm working on. Sometimes they dull quickly, but you know, one blade will usually last a day, no problem, unless there's something really tricky going on.
You have a certain size of scalpel that you like? What the fuck? My family's in medicine. I know this question.
I have a shape that I prefer. I don't know the like names and corresponding numbers. There's a maybe you can answer this question for me. When I first started buying scalpels, the way that you changed the blade was a little screw. Now, when I go to buy a scalpel handle, I can only find this kind that is like it has a slot and you're supposed to pop the blade onto it.
Oh yeah, I know the kind.
I actually don't know. My guess would be that the threading would be more expensive, and so they've just made it cheaper.
It's like overnight, all of the ones with the little screws disappeared. And I'm so pissed off because I just want that one. I left mine on a set somewhere and I just want to replace it. And I can't find one anymore.
There's a lot of med supply stores that you can find online that'll have backstock. And that'll just have a bunch of the old stuff because like gauze doesn't really go bad.
Right.
So you may still be able to find them.
All right. Med supply stores. Yeah, I would say if you're ripping seams with a scalpel, that's a tailor tell. Everybody has their own particular, needs, or like a lot of tailors have like a signature, but it's their personal signature, you know, because it's just like some tailors, a lot of tailors I know will like, they actually prefer clothing that's not close to the body at all. They want clothing that's really far away. A lot of like neck stuff, like what do you wear around your neck? There's those tiny scissors are called snips. So a lot of people have their like customized snips neck deal or their set pouch or whatever. Like I think Dylan uses an old Guidi bag as her set pouch.
That does not surprise me.
Very cool. Scissors, I would say, what are they? I'm going to mispronounce this name.
We wouldn't know the difference.
Ginger or Geiger scissors. Those are pretty common. You used to go to the garment district, and what was available in the garment district was what people were using. And these days, I would say it's, if you see someone with like a Wawak bag,
What is Wawak?
That's Wawak.
It's a sewing supply website.
Okay.
That
I'm going to look so official, and then I'm going to take out that scalpel and immediately like 18 stitches required on my pointer finger.
Yeah, you got to be careful. I did recently slice my finger with a scalpel, and it was pretty brutal. That was probably my worst sewing injury. I have yet to sew through my finger on a machine, but I have been in the room when that's happened.
There is some
really
wood
brutal.
there to knock on. If you need.
Yeah, that's really bad.
Yeah, that's scary as hell.
Yeah, there's a lot of blades involved. Like rotary cutters. Those are also used frequently and have to have a more special sharps disposal for those because those don't come in foil or anything like that. I don't know. There's all kinds of specialty tailoring tools. Everyone has the ones that they like. I'm really into a hem gauge these days.
What does that do?
It's just a special kind of ruler. It's like a little ruler with a slidey bit on it. And the slidey bit you can just set at a certain length. You could say 2 inches, 1.5 inches. And there's a little thickness. And so you can use
2
it.
inches and a lot of thickness. I know a lot about that.
Very good.
There we go.
There's a width to the...
Give it up. Thank you.
So the little gauge thing, basically you like line it up to the edge of the hem. And so if you're pressing a hem, because a lot of sewing is actually just ironing. And so when you're ironing or doing something else, you can use it instead of having to search for, I need this to be 1 3/4 inches. You just have it set to 1 3/4 inches, and it's a gauge. You
Got
know,
it.
just
Cool.
like a preset shape.
Are the skill sets required for tailoring close to the body or more form-fitting and farther from the body completely different? Or is that just knowing how to sew things in general?
I wouldn't say they're completely different, but they are different shapes usually. So it's like a different sense of comfort with, I think a lot of people who tailor away from the body or design away from the body are doing more straight up pattern making, and you end up with a lot more straight seams. Close to the body is always going to require things like curves, darts, and those come with their own particular challenges, depending on where you're putting them in and for who and what the body is like. So probably working closer to the body is more challenging because you are working with constraints as opposed to away from the body. Your only constraint is how much fabric you have.
I have one last question. I don't know if Michael has any others, but I was super interested to ask
Yes.
and found a good time to transition. There are a lot of trends in clothing. We talked earlier about how they were more of a gradual push. Now they're a huge swing. Are you able to tell quite quickly or early on, sort of as like the weather vane on top of a barn, with people coming in and wanting specific alterations, what is going to be in vogue and what is on the way out?
I would say I usually know before they do.
Oh, okay.
This isn't necessarily the case. You know, if you're a tailor who is really into sewing versus, you know, I like fashion. And so I am paying attention to fashion. So as a tailor paying attention to fashion, and with some knowledge of fashion history and how trends have moved historically, I find it a bit easier to look and go like, this thing is going to be in style soon. But you know, people who are coming off the street to get their clothes tailored, it's usually clothes they've had for a while, or it's a new thing. They're not really, people aren't so much like tailoring their clothes to fit a trend. They might buy the clothes to fit the trend and then tailor it to fit themselves. I would encourage more people to think more about like full rework. Like I had a couple, you know, my size changed somewhat recently. I had this closet full of clothes I loved I couldn't wear anymore. And a lot of people would say like, oh, you got to sell them or you got to give, you know, whatever. And I just cut them apart and turn them into one dress.
Oh,
So
cool.
like that type of thing, I think there's more room for engaging with like changing shapes in the landscape. But people are generally conservative, I would say, in what they want from their tailoring. You know,
Fair enough.
It's I want my t-shirt to be 2 inches shorter or something. I learned from other tailors. I bought this pair of pants because one of the other tailors I work with, who's also an amazing designer, Tess Salzel, she was wearing some moto pants, and I was like, that's the coolest shit I've ever seen. I will buy some now too.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Did you do these repairs on the legs, or is that just...
I didn't do these repairs. Somebody else had done them. These came from Malaysia. So, you know,
Ooh.
some Malaysian teenager presumably did these. But I did alter these pants up here. So this is my work.
just to make them fit?
A little too big.
Super
So,
cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Fun.
What is the next big thing then, if you know before everybody else? Put you on the spot.
The next big thing for everyone.
Yeah. Every single
Be a
person. Make
little
that
more
generalization.
specific than that.
Okay, for a 25, soon to be 26-year-old, 6'2" Jewish boy, what would be the next big thing?
God. I don't know about menswear. Menswear befuddles me a little bit. I try to stay away from it.
What if 6'2" Jewish woman who also happens to wear 3/4 length baseball shirts and selvedge denim? Walk with me here. Mm-hmm.
I think, so I think the thing that is currently the most interesting, that is kind of a low level trend that we're going to continue to see more of, is load bearing on the like thighs and hips. So like low pockets. I know. I'm sorry.
It's too easy.
We're
I'm not going to make the joke. That's
we're talking
fine.
about bodies all day. Like it's what it is.
I know.
A few seasons ago, Miu Miu did that like mini skirt with the giant cargo pockets really low. I think that type of volume mid thigh is really going to only continue to pick up steam. We're seeing a little more. You may be familiar with the shape. It's called a robe de steel silhouette. It's from
I don't know it. Michael might.
ROBEDE. Steel is spelled like style. And it's a 1920s silhouette where it's like a straight dress with that goes out, and then there's fullness kind of above the knee, and then it goes straight down from there. I think Jacquemus has done some. I think J.W. Anderson, maybe at Loewe, did a bunch.
Interesting.
So I think that's kind of my. I also am a writer, and occasionally I will write about fashion.
Where do you write?
Where do I write? In my apartment. I mostly write like fiction, but I wrote a piece for a friend's publication, which is called The Other Almanac, and I wrote a trend forecast for her,
super cool.
where I talked about the what I see as the incoming popularity, or at least interest in these kind of like load bearing on the stomach and the hips. And then for men, I still think princess seams. I think they're coming back.
What's a princess seam?
A princess seam is a seam that starts, it depends if it's a top or a shirt, but it's basically the seam that goes up along here.
Oh.
So you'll see it sometimes. I mean, it's most commonly seen on women's clothes to fit the bust, but you sometimes see like sometimes a dart in a men's jacket will approach a kind of princess seam look.
Yeah.
I think for suiting, I'm excited about the possibility of seeing princess seams and like empire waists in men's tailoring. Empire waist is like a high waist.
Super cool. Wow. That's cool. There we go. We did it.
Yeah.
I fun guessing. Yeah.
That's cool. I'd love to read more.
You should write more.
You should write more.
Want to hear some great words? You should start a Substack. I would read it. I think that'd be really interesting.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
All right. Song of the week, I believe.
Yep. So before we get out of here, we ask all of our guests to give us a song that we add to a playlist. And it's called Pair of Kings, but the R is a 12 in both of the words.
Nice.
Michael, do you want to go first and add a song?
It's by Grim River, but I forget the name of it.
Okay.
We went to our friend's birthday, and she had this rockabilly band play. Local boys' night by Grim River.
Cool.
They're the lead singer is like the rockabilly guy. Like he's always wearing like
Pompadour?
No, just kind of like a not a full pompadour, but he's like maybe not like rock. He's always got like light wash, slightly boot cut jeans on, and then a matching denim jacket with the collar popped. Like he does the like. Oh,
this is my dog. This is the experience of owning this dog.
And he does like the Elvis like shake around. Oh my God, Leo. He always makes the noise until you give him the mic. Anyways, Saul, what's your song of the week?
Ow, Leo. So I wanted to add, there's a really good song called Our Love by a guy or a group called Rocksteady, but I found it digging on Soulseek and cannot find it anywhere else other than YouTube. And I think the YouTube video has like 20,000 views, which is a shame because I wish that was on Spotify. But instead of that, I will add Hold On by Romanthony. Romanthony, I found him because he did the vocals on Daft Punk's One More Time. And he also makes his own music. So that's my song.
Nice.
You have a song of the week?
Song of the week. Song of the week. Maybe Sank by Gabby's World.
Before we get out of here, the floor is yours. Send some shout outs. Tell the people where they can find you. Plug whatever. You said you're none too enthused with self-promotion, but take the floor. And if you don't do it, we will do it for you, which I guarantee you will not be as fun.
Self-promotion. You can find me tailoring at Graceland, which is in Ridgewood. Check them out. They also have their own line that they produce, which is really cool. And they also sell the line that my coworker Tess Salzel makes, a hand knit line that's really amazing. You can find me at my website, which is not live now, but perhaps will be in the future, chloeboxer.com. And I'll probably post tailoring related stuff and then writing related stuff as well. I'm on Instagram, but you can find me at your leisure.
There you go.
Thank you so much to everybody for listening to this episode of the Pair of Kings podcast. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Pair of Kings Pod. I'm your host, Saul Thompson. You can find me on Instagram at Saul Thompson. I'm joined this week not only by my wonderful co-host.
I'm Michael Smith. I have an Instagram. I think it's at _Smithstagram.
And this week's wonderful guest, Chloe Boxer. Would you like to plug your Instagram?
Nope.
Easy as. Thank you so much to everybody for listening. Don't forget, Chloe, before we get out of here, we have a Discord. People can join if they listen to an episode, but we ask all of our guests to give us a word or a phrase that people should message us if they'd like to join at pairofkingspod on Instagram.com. What should that word or phrase be for this episode?
That word or phrase, should it be like easy to...
It can be whatever you want.
Okay. It should be redingote.
Redingote.
Yeah, which is a style of bodice with a great story behind it that I could tell you later.
We've got time now.
Redingote, Redingote. A redingote is a style of bodice that was popular in the, I want to say, 18th century. It is an English style of bodice that is sort of based on a French style of bodice called a redingote.
Where did they get the name from?
The redingote is a style of bodice based on a British jacket.
So wait, sorry.
Yep.
French?
It went from English to British to French to British again.
Okay.
So the origin is a riding coat. It's literally just riding coat with a French accent, but they call it a redingote, and now that is a style of bodice. That's the redingote. It has its own spelling, even though it's just a hilarious French mispronunciation.
Like a game of telephone. Mm-hmm. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Part of me wonders if the French actually got it fairly close, but the British, when they took it back, were like, oh, fuck you guys. Redingote.
Redingote.
But thank you so much to everybody for listening to this episode of the Pair of Kings podcast. Don't forget to join the Discord, follow us over on Instagram. I guess we don't really ever use Twitter or TikTok anymore, but they're there. This has been the Pair of Kings podcast, where once a week, every week for the foreseeable future, we are bringing you business as usual, tomfoolery as planned. Have a great Thursday if you're listening to this on the Hero, or a Tuesday if you're listening to this anywhere else. Bye, everyone.
Bye.